शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। नमः श्रीशङ्करानन्दगुरुपादाम्बुजन्मने नमः श्रीशङ्करानन्दगुरुपादाम्बुजन्मने सविलासमहामोहग्राहग्रासैककर्मणे सविलासमहामोहग्राहग्रासैककर्मणे परमात्माद्वयानन्द पूर्णं पूर्वं स्वमायया स्वयमेव जगद्भूत्वा प्राविशज्जीवरूपतः। In response to the abiding myth, a rampant myth, where among all the jivas, in the society, in all the cultures. And what is the rampant myth? There are two things. What is the first thing? Atma, I. And what is the second thing? Paramatma. I have to look up to find out where this Paramatma is located. And a continuation of this myth is what? Somehow this Atma, I, have to become what? One with Paramatma. So the idea is that this two has to somehow become one. If two becomes one, everything, what will happen? Then it won't take too much longer for the one to become two. Sarve sanyogaha viyogantaha. Sureshwaracharya, Adi Shankara's, one of Adi Shankara's direct disciples, says in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Vartika. Vartika is a commentary in verse. In the Vartika he says, Sarve samyogaha, all coming together is what? Until it falls apart. All unions are until what? Until the end of that union. Even in the wedding, what do they say? Till death do us part. So, like this, every union is until it separates. So similarly, if there were to be a union of Jiva and Paramatma, then what would happen? It would come to an end. Just like every other union, why should this be any different? Because the same law will apply everywhere we go. And so this rampant myth, this wrong understanding first has to be reckoned here. And with this, probably this myth was there, even in, this is a long, well-entrenched myth, so it was probably flourishing even during the time of Swami Vidyaranya. Therefore, this chapter starts with a big bang to dismiss this myth, that there are two which somehow needs to become one. Two can never become one. If it is two, then it is two. No, somehow the Jivatma, there is, in the Shastra you never hear the word Jivatma. Jiva, yes. Atma, yes. Paramatma, yes. But you never hear the word Jivatma. This is a concoction. Avichara krito bandha. We saw that. This is due to avichara, due to durvichara. Avichara krito bandha vicharena nivartate. We saw that. So this is avichara krito bandha. This bandha, this kind of a notion that traps one, that's why it is bandha. One is trapped by the cage of all kinds of notions. Every notion is a bar on the cage. And so therefore, this notion also, I am what? Jivatma. And then what I have to do? Become one with Paramatma. How do I do that? Simple. Wait till I die and then go to heaven. Yeah. This is most theologies. Wait till I die and go to heaven, and there are many glossy brochures describing heaven. Yes, oh, lovely, oh, I can do this. And then just like you go to a travel agent and they will plan a kind of a mock itinerary. You want to go for 10 days to Europe, they will plan a mock itinerary. Day 1 you go here and then you'll be tired, so just a nice little dinner at the hotel and then you go to sleep, and the next day you go and look at these falls, these amazing falls. After that you go somewhere else, then you go shopping, and then you have to eat at this particular restaurant. Like this they plan the itinerary, and then that is also part of the brochure. They will say these are the possible things you can do. This is a mock itinerary. Similarly, the first portion of the Veda also does the same thing. In fact, they all learnt from the first portion of the Veda how to advertise. Day 1, dance duet with Rambha and Urvashi, heavenly nymphs. Day 2, some music with the Yakshas and Kinnaras. Day 3, a guided tour of Swarga, heaven. Like this. All these things are there, and if you want what is in day 4, you need a little more yajnas. In fact, the yajnas that you do here take you to a better experience. If you want to upgrade your heavenly stay, then and have a selfie with Bhagavan, click, you know. What is this? Putting an arm around Bhagavan, Sayujya it's called. It's a particular kind of moksha touted by the dualists called Samipya, Sayujya, all these things. So what do? Click. And so, like this, if you want that, then you have to reserve in advance. How do I reserve in advance? You reserve it in advance by doing extra good works. Where? Right here. So the amount of punya you shore up and you just collect, you become a punya-holic, you become a punya hog. Punya means good karma. And then after that you go there and use it to be what? To spend some time with Bhagavan, so to speak. How are you going to spend some time with Bhagavan? No, I'll just sit and gaze at him. They're very convinced it's him. Okay, yeah. Even though they say it's formless. Formless, but him. Formless, but has a location called Swarga, heaven. Very strange, but that's how it is. Defies logic. Something can be beyond logic, but it cannot defy logic. Adi Shankara himself says, if 1,000 Upanishads come and tell you that fire is cold, do not believe them. Use your common sense. Use your understanding what for the buddhi has been given, not to pickle it and make achar out of the buddhi. And so therefore here, this Jivatma Paramatma business is a myth. It is not supported by the Shastra. Even the first portion of the Veda, which is giving you advertisements of various kinds of lokas, various kinds of heavens that you can go and then have chai with Indra, have a selfie with Vishnu, all these things. All these things, they are there for the ones who want that. Never ever it says that is your ultimate destiny, to go and sit in heaven. It clearly says, no matter how much punya you have, no matter how much you go there, you have to come back. The Bhagavad Gita itself says, Kshine punye martyalokam vishanti. Tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam. After having enjoyed all the heavenly pleasures, vast heavenly pleasures, Kshine punye, when the currency, the visa that took you there elapses, what happens is exhausted. When the punya is exhausted, then you have to come back to the world of the mortals. If this understanding is not there, what is the understanding? That there is only Paramatma. Oh, that's why I don't like Vedanta, because I am at once erased. At least before I came to Vedanta, I was a small fellow with some small dreams, small aspirations, small ambitions, small hopes, small belongings. And now you're saying I'm all, I'm not small. But what happens to all my belongings? What happens to my notions? What happens to the things that have made me famous? That have made me appear on Google when I Google my own name? What happened to all that? People don't understand that in order to embrace that I am all, you don't even have to let go of the small. You have to understand that the small is included in the word all. Small is included in all. The finite is included in the infinite. The limited is included in the limitless. And if this is not understood, always there will be some kind of separation between oneself and Bhagavan, and that separation causes anxiety. That's why it is called what? Separation anxiety. Starts at age 2, where is mummy? And then what? Then you search for the big mummy and big daddy. Darshan kab doge? When will you give darshan? Always a child. Never an adult. I'm afraid of growing up, says the jiva. Why are you afraid of growing up? Because then I have to be accountable. I have to be responsible. And I don't want to grow up because I want to be taken care of. In fact, I want to be saved. Ours is not, the philosophy of Vedanta is neither messianic in nature, nor is it salvific. You can only be saved if you are bound, if you are enslaved. We say you are not enslaved to begin with. How can you be saved? Where is the question of saving when there is no bondage to begin with? The bondage is as though, the saving is as though, the redemption from the bondage is as though. And so, to think that there are two entities that have somehow to merge against all logic is just plain wrong. It is not something that is supported by the Upanishad also. If we take a little trip into the Chandogya Upanishad 6th chapter, Sadeva Somya idamagre asit, says Uddalaka, the father of Shvetaketu, who is now his teacher. Idamagre, before, idam means this jagat. Before, agre. Before means what? Before it was in this form, in this manifest form. Asit, it was there. Idam, agre, sat asit. It was in the form of sat. What is this sat? It was just existence. Unmanifest, avyakta existence. Unmanifest existence it was. It was just here. It had, let us call it Sat. Idam agre, idam jagat, this jagat, agre, long before it multiplied into various names and forms, what was it? Sat. Let not this past tense fool us into thinking that at that time it was Sat, now it is what? Asat. No. What is it now? Now also it is Sat. Uddalaka is expounding the cosmology of creation to show the mithyatvam of the Jagat. Idam agre, idam Jagat, agre sadeva asit. Eva means emphasis. Only Sat, there was nothing else. There was nothing other than this, there was nothing outside of it, there was nothing like it, there was nothing unlike it. All that was there was Sat, 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 Sat. Sat alone was. And what is the nature of the Sat? Ekameva advitiyam Sat. It was only one, and that one also means we can say half Sat, 1/4 Sat. We can keep saying. No half, no 1/4. A non-dually one Sat. Ekameva advitiyam. Then seeing the question in Shvetaketu's face, but what about all this? Shvetaketu must have either articulated or silently thought that. Being the father, knows his son very well, answers the question even before it is articulated. What is the question? If it is Sat, then how do you account for so many bodies, so many life forms, so many trees, so many mountains, so many species, so many things? What is this? Uddalaka beautifully says, all these names and forms are dependent upon your tongue. Vacharambhanam vikaro nama dheyam. Vacharambhanam, vak alambanam. It is dependent on your speech. Pot, you give it a name. There is a form for which you give a name. In other words, there is a word which is nama, which has a meaning, arupa. The whole world is a series of words employed by you which has a collectively agreed upon meaning. Table, word which has a meaning. Chair, word which has a meaning. Door, word which has a meaning. Window, word which has a meaning. Clock, word and meaning. Microphone, word and meaning. Book, word and meaning. Glasses, word and meaning. Pot, of course, word and meaning. Crystal, word and meaning. Everything that you see, word and meaning, word and meaning, word and meaning, word and meaning, word and meaning. The whole world is a series of seemingly unending words which have collectively agreed upon meanings. The whole thing is word and meaning, word and meaning, word and meaning. Like even, this is how we get the pot example from the 6th chapter of the Chandogya Upanishad. Uddalaka says, Ekena mritpindena sarvan mrinmayam vijñātam bhavati. By understanding, examining one lump of clay, mritpinda, one lump of clay. What do you see? What do you get? You understand the whole world of earthenware. That same clay is in the form of pot, is in the form of lid, is in the form of cup, is in the form of saucer, is in the form of a beautiful Krishna figurine, is in the form of a jug, a jar, whatever else. You wake up in the morning and you just walk somewhere, you are on your walk, and you see the potter's house with a big lump of clay in front. So then you go for a walk, then you finish your errands, and then you come back. There is no more clay. What is there? A whole lot of pots drying in the sun. What happened to the clay? You can't say it is not there. What has happened to it? It has as though been transformed into earthenware. The whole Jagat is like this. Just like examining one ball of clay, one lump of clay, you understand the whole world of earthenware without needing to do PhD on each and every pot. In the same way, Vacharanbhanam vikaro namadheyam mrittika ityeva satyam. Just like the mrit, the clay is the truth of the pot, similarly, Sat is the truth of the Jagat. The whole Jagat was Sat, is Sat, will continue to be Sat. And how many Sats are there? Non-dually one. Non-dually one. And this alone is. Then what am I? Just a person with complaints. That's all you are. You can't say, I am not this Sat, everything else but me is this Sat. That means what? Then Sat will no longer become Advaya, will no longer become Ananda, Ananta, limitless. There's only one Sat which is non-dual, which the one Sat means one reality. All that is there is one reality which simply is. Sat means is, which is. And this isness, if we can use that word, pervades the whole universe. In fact, everything for which I use the verb is, that isness belongs to Sat. The whole Jagat shines in borrowed isness, like the crow pretending to be a peacock by putting a few peacock feathers. The whole Jagat shines in borrowed isness. Sat is alone self-standing, everything else stands because of Sat. Sat is the prop upon which the entire Jagat leans. The Jagat is leaning on Sat. There can be no other entity. All that is there is Sat. That is only the only entity that is there is Sat. Then where is Jivatma now? Where is Paramatma now? No Jivatma, no Paramatma, not possible at all. All that is there is Sat. And this cannot be logically derived. There are so many quote-unquote systems of philosophy. It's called Shad Darshanam. 6 kinds of darshanas or philosophies are talked about. Nyaya, Vaisheshika, and then what else? Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, and then Purva Mimamsa. Charvaka is not one of them. Charvaka is there, but it's not counted in the six ones. There's one more. Nyaya, Yoga, Vaisheshika, Purva Mimamsa. One more is missing. I'll look it up and tell you. Huh? No, that includes, one more is still missing. Sankhya, very good, thank you. Sankhya. So all these, and the Sankhya also, there is Nirishvara Sankhya, which makes it Veda Bahya, outside of the Vedas, because there is no Ishvara there. And all these things. These are called Shad Darshanam, and Vedanta is seen as one of the systems of philosophy. This is utterly wrong. I don't know who did this, and we are stuck with this classification. It is utterly wrong. It cannot be. Why? Because all these 5 other than Vedanta are points of view. Vedanta is what? The view. As long as I know that these are points of view, they can be accommodated in the view. But if a view is mistaken, if the point of view, is mistaken to be the view, then we are making a very big mistake. This is all talked about in the 4th chapter of the Mandukya Karika in great detail. The grand guru of Adi Shankara puts all these arguments to rest. He begins on a very lofty note by saying, we are not quarreling with these 5, whatever they are, darshanas. We are not quarreling with them. We have no truck with them at all. In fact, we appreciate how somebody could have thought that this is the case, that pradhana, this purusha, and then there is this, the pradhana is there and this maya is there, and then this is how something is created. There is nothing to do with Ishvara, and the creation have nothing to do with each other. This is one of the this is what Sankhya posits. Gaudapadacharya says, I can see how they thought that. That is an interim understanding. In order to come to a certain understanding, you have to go through stages, and those stages cannot be bypassed. A child who is 5 needs to go to KG, cannot suddenly do its PhD. It has to make mistakes, it has to learn, it has to hone in certain arguments, it has to grow up. Similarly, here also, the philosophies that are just cutting their teeth, they have to also grow up, and they have to also see what the limitations of whatever they espouse. They have to see the limitations, otherwise it is not okay. And here they are, they have reached here, and this is what they believe, this is what they say. We can see how they came to where they are. He respects the philosophies, he doesn't argue with them. He just says that what Vedanta does is nothing to do with their goals. Their goals of all this Nayayika, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, everything, is to make the 2 into 1. And same thing, Vishishta, Advaita, Dvaita, all of them. How to make the 2 into 1, this seems to be a preoccupation for which they have devised many arguments, many ways. But however, what is our understanding? There was no 2 to begin with. And it's not our understanding. It is based on the Shastra. We are not sort of suddenly. It is not Kapola Kalpitam. Kapola Kalpitam means when the skull starts to do its own thinking. What is inside the skull should think. But when the skull starts to think on its own, then we are in trouble. But this is what it is. You can't just suddenly come up with what you want and it is your pet philosophy and then you justify it. No. You have to see what the Shastra says. Sadeva somya idamagre asit ekameva dvitiyam. Vacharambhanam vikaro namadheyam mrittika ityeva satyam. It is clearly laid out. If you know Sanskrit, you can understand this. There is no way of distorting this. Tat sat, that sat, sa atma, tvamasi shvetaketo. That sat, which sat? The sat that this jagat was before it manifested. That sat is this atma, you. There is no way of distorting that. It is clear as day. But then, because the notions are well entrenched, there is a pressure to try to say, this is how it is. We'll logically derive Ishvara. You can't logically derive Ishvara. You'll get into trouble. Why? Because the Shastra itself is a means of knowledge for that which you cannot understand on your own. What you can understand on your own are objects. That's why we have the 5 direct means of knowing. What are they? Sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell. You can know. You can't smell out the Atma. Why? You can't see the Atma, you cannot pick up the smell of Atma. And here also there are some dogged people, self-styled God-men who say, who they don't say that. They tell their Shishyas to say that. And the Shishya will say, whenever my teacher comes into the room, smell of roses. Yes. Atma Jnani. You have to talk like that. You have to change your voice. Anybody can just put some, what is that, essential oil of rose. Yeah. When? Rose. Yeah, every day. You can put it on and walk into the room and leave a wafting smell. Not a big deal. No. You can search his room. You will not find any such things. That's because you are keeping it with you. That's why if I search his room, I won't find anything. Crazy, absolutely bonkers. We don't have to have pressure to show that you are a Brahmajnani. It's a silent affair. It's an inside job. In fact, it's a knowledge without even somebody claiming it as the knower. There is no knower for this knowledge. Because the very thought of the knower is knocked off in the operation of this pramana called Shabda Pramana, which I don't have access to, which has to operate upon me. Shabda means words. Knowledge in the form of words, of what? Not any words. Words of the Shastra, the words of the Upanishad, channeled by rishis in stages of meditation, in states of meditation. Highly evolved rishis. Somebody asked, why can't I channel an Upanishad? Be like the rishi, you can certainly channel an Upanishad, no problem. You can also see the mantras like the rishis saw the mantras. And so, this knowledge is given. This is not just a knowledge, a body of knowledge. It is also a built-in means of knowledge. Because these 5 means of knowledge, the direct perception, plus we have few other things with which we can objectify things. One-step inference, multi-step inference. What else do we have? Upama. Oh, I had that for breakfast. No, not that. Upama, comparison. You take a known entity and compare it with an unknown, unseen entity, and when you see the unseen entity, then arthaspuranam takes place. You say, aha, this is what it is. But you should know one of them. If you haven't seen a bison, you can say, what can you say? It's like a bull, but a bigger version. Much bigger than a bull. Be careful. Keep a safe distance. It can attack. Elk, bison, so many things. You can say, okay, this is in this particular cow jati, but much bigger. And then when you go see the bison, you say, aha, yes, now I see. This is what is a bison. And this is called upama. Then we have a very strange means of knowledge called anupalabdhi. Anupalabdhi means the knowledge of the cognition of absence. Is there a pot in the palm of my hand? No. Why? Don't say because it's here. Okay? Because I see the hand externally, I see the pot internally, I don't see the two in the same location. Anupalabdhi. Arthapatti, multi-step inference, which every parent knows. Where were you? The parent will ask the teenager. Oh, why, Mom? Why, Dad? I was studying in this friend's house. You were not, because I called the friend. No, I had just gone to the store because we were thirsty, so I wanted something to drink. And who did you go to the store with? With another friend. Sorry, that's not correct, because I called that friend also. A parent will say, parents are very clever in operating this arthapatti means of knowledge. Especially parents of teenagers and young adults, they know this very well. You were not there. When the truth comes out, I went to the movies, came back, absent without leave. Aha! How did the parent arrive at this? By eliminating all other possibilities. This is what the arthapatti is. Anyatha anupapattau. No other way this is possible. Multi-step inference. Then of course, one-step inference. What is one-step inference? I wake up, all the roads are wet. What do I infer? It must have rained. If it is raining now, I don't need to infer, I see the rain. It has stopped raining, but I know that there is it must have rained. Same thing. Parvato vanhiman. There is fire on the mountain, but the mountain is very tall, huge mountain. Do I see the fire? No, but I see something. What do I see? Smoke. And the inference is what? There is fire. Why? Because wherever there is smoke, there is fire. How do I know that? Because I've had a few kitchen mishaps. I have almost set the entire kitchen on fire due to some whatever, due to being in Nirvikalpa Samadhi after starting to cook. And so, this is the example. Parvato vanhiman. The mountain is fiery. Mountain has fire. How do I know? Dhumatvat. Because there is smoke. How do I know there is smoke? Pakashalavat. Because I have seen it in my own kitchen. Put something that you should not put in the microwave. And then what? You literally zap it. And so, this is all one-step inference. First is pratyaksha, direct perception with all the 5 ways of knowing, sense organs. One-step inference, multi-step inference. Then what else? Upama, simile, comparison. And finally, finally, what is that? Anupalabdhi. For to operate anupalabdhi, you should know what is missing and where it is missing from. Otherwise you will go into shunyata. What is missing? Pot is missing. Where is it missing? Where is the location from which it is missing? The palm of the hand. None of these means of knowledge that are available to you, you can what? You can put it for use to know the self. None of them. These are all good for objects, which the knower, the pramata, objectifies. Every branch of knowledge is like that. The knower and the known never shall meet. The knower is always the knower. The known is always the known. And the knower becomes the conqueror of the body of knowledge. I know physics, I know chemistry, I know microbiology. And like I have said many times before, a professor of microbiology, having taught for almost 40 years, let us say, does not become a microbe. Remains a microbiologist, separate from the body of knowledge that she or he professes. Does not become a microbe. But Brahmavit, the knower of Brahman, what happens to the knower of Brahman? Brahmaiva bhavati is nothing other than Brahman. We shouldn't translate as becomes Brahman. There is no becoming involved here. Is Brahman, understands that I am Brahman. This is the only knowledge. Vedanta as a means of knowledge is different from other means of knowledge in two important respects. The first difference is that the other means of knowledge are used for knowing objects, are useful for knowing objects, whereas the words of the Shastra are useful for knowing I, the subject. Number one. Number two, the other means of knowledge are in my grubby paws. I operate them. I am the seer, I am the hearer, I am the one who picks up the smell. Don't say I am the smeller, okay? That gives a different meaning. I am the one who picks up the smells, the sights, the sounds. I am in charge of all these means of knowledge. I am the inferer. I am the one who operates the pramana called upama. All these things I am. So in the first instance, where the 5 means of knowledge are concerned, I am the one in charge. The last means of knowledge, Shabda Pramana, the means of knowledge in the form of the Veda, Vedanta. It operates upon me. I don't have a say. I can't make it say Paramatma and Jivatma are 2 different things. Come on. No. That would be a disservice to what it says. I can't make it say that. I have no access to this pramana. It has to operate upon me with the help of the teacher who handles the pramana of the Shastra, brings it alive. That's why nothing happens after you read the Upanishad. You read the Upanishad. So somebody asked me, tell me which, I have some time off, tell me which Upanishads to read. I tried to say, you cannot read the Upanishads. No, I really want to study the Upanishads, I want to read them. Tell me how to read them. I said, okay, I will tell you. Keep a glass of water and keep a Tylenol and then start reading the Upanishads. Definitely you will get a migraine. Definitely you will get a headache. Especially with all these English translations. That is whole. Then what else? This is also whole. And then, as though this is not confusing enough, when you take the whole away from the whole, what remains is a big hole in the head. A big hole in my understanding. So, you can't read. Nothing you will understand. Or you will understand wrongly. Therefore, the presence of the teacher to handle the pramana, to make the Upanishad, to convert the Upanishad, the words of the Upanishad into pramana is very much necessary. This is what is called Shabda Pramana. All the other pramanas keep the subject-object difference in play. Subject and object are always what? Separate. I, the knower. Catch, kill, conquer. Catch, kill, eat mentality. From our samskaras as being wild beasts, maybe in some previous life form. What does the beast do? Look, survey, pounce, catch, kill, swaha. That is its life. Now I have a human body, but this is what I do. Survey, what all do I not know? What all have to, I don't know this, I have to conquer this, I have to catch this. Eat means become one with it, so to speak. Become a master of it, not really one with it. Become a master of it. That's why we have certain alarming ways of talking. One teenage boy came to see me with his mother a few years back. And I knew he had an important exam. So I asked him, how did you do? Swaminiji, I killed it. I looked a little alarmed. What did you kill? Then the mother explained, no, that means he did it very well. He did the exam, he did very well in the exams. So, kill means what? This is what it is. We use the same language as whatever we did as animals. That same bestial tendency is very much there. Catch, kill, conquer, eat. I killed it. And so, that same attitude, which is useful to get ahead in the universe, it's useful to cut out the competition. It's useful to get what you want. It's useful for yoga-kshema pursuits. Gain what you want, protect what you have, and then get rid of what you don't want, and then keep at bay what you never want to have. All these pramanas are useful, but they can never tell you that you are the whole. Why? Because as long as the pramata is alive, the pramata is very much kept separate as the knower, then this Brahman cannot be known as an object because it is the truth of you. So what does this means of knowledge do? It knocks off the knower through the ingenious use of words. It knocks off the very, very knower. The concept of knower is just gone, decimated, finished off. The knower has to be dethroned. The knower is sitting, the ahankara as the knower is sitting there with the throne on its head. Hey, I have known so many things. This Brahman is nothing. This also I will know. And the Taittiriya Upanishad has a very beautiful segment. Yato vacho nivartante apraapya manasa saha. The mind and the speech decided to go conquer, catch, kill, eat Brahman. One day they said, we are going to do this. Nobody else has been able to do this. We are going to do this. Mind and speech are like the blind man who is sitting, the blind man who is walking, and the lame man who is sitting on the shoulders of the blind man. The blind man wants to go, can't go anywhere, and the lame man also wants to go. Individually they cannot go anywhere. But if they team up, nothing is impossible, so they thought. The lame man perched on the shoulders of the blind man and said, watch out, you're going to crash against a tree, take a left turn, swerve this way, swerve that way, go ahead, go straight. We are very close to what we want. If what you want is a restaurant, this combination works very well. The lame man directs, the blind man provides the manpower, the legs, the pair of legs to the locomotion, and they get to many places. And what is that here? The mind and the speech are like they depend on one another, like the blind and the lame. And then what? They said, we are going to conquer Brahman, you wait and see. Okay. How are you going to do that? Don't worry. We are going to bring back Brahman, BBB, Project BBB. Right now we are going to bring back Brahman. We are going to bring it. And then what? They had to beat a sad retreat. Yataha yasmat karanat, from which causeless cause. Vacho nivartante, the words come back sadly. The words go into maunam. They are ashamed to talk now. They are just quiet, silent. Aprapya, not having gained the goal of catching, killing, eating, bringing back Brahman. Manasa saha, along with the mind. The mind and the speech are the greatest of friends. The speech keeps on telling the mind, oh, you have such wonderful ideas. And the mind says, what use are the ideas if you cannot articulate them? You are so flowery. You make me look good. They have a mutual appreciation society. But then this is of no use to bring back Brahman. Why? Because Brahman is never away from you. Number one. Number two, it's not an object to bring back. It is the one who is wanting to bring back is Brahman. The bringer-backer is Brahman. The truth of the inferer is Brahman. The content of the knower is Brahman. The knower has to shut up. That's what it is. The mind has to be dethroned and then brought through the service door. See, in 5-star hotels and all, first door is there for what? All the guests. That's where everything, plants are put, nice figurines, marble figurines are there, frescoes are there, painting is there, nice couches are there to sit down while you wait to be checked in. Far different it is from what is called the rear service door. The service door is where all the employees come in from. It's somewhere in the basement, in the back of the hotel. You go. That's where all the trucks, the food trucks will drop off the cabbage and the turnips and everything for the restaurant, and other supplies are dropped off. So first the mind has to be ousted from thinking it is the guest in the hotel. In the antahkarana, thinking that it is a guest, it has to be ousted and then instead brought back through the rear service door as a sahakari, as something that will help this quest, not hurt this quest. The mind has a role. What is the role of the mind? As a servant of this knowledge, not as an agent of this knowledge. If the mind, the ahankara, becomes an agent of this knowledge, then this knowledge will forever be elusive. The mind is a servant of this knowledge. It is a receptacle where the knowledge takes place, where the knowledge shines. That is why the mind has a role, but not the role that you have given it. The pramana that comes from outside is a scary pramana. Why? Because I am not operating it. And I am a control king, a control queen. I want to be in charge. I want to operate all the pramanas. Not possible, sorry. Every other pramana you can operate. This one operates upon you. Just like when you go to surgery. You have to give up. Even if you're a doctor, when you go into surgery, you have to let go. You absolutely have to let go. You can choose the surgeon, you can Google the surgeon, all that you have done. You can make sure that they know their stuff. Oh, only 3 people have died in a 25-year career, that's good. You can tell yourself that. You can see the statistics. But that's why they say you have to go under the knife. You have to go under. Under means anesthetized. You have to go under anesthesia. Anesthesia means what? You are temporarily out of commission. And even though they say so that you don't feel the pain and the tumor being taken out and all that, it is also helping the surgeon. Because the surgeon doesn't want interference in the operation. The surgeon doesn't want you to say, are you using the right scalpel? Are you cutting in the right place? I think it's little above. The surgeon doesn't want your input. The surgeon wants you out. And then when you wake up, you don't even know the surgery has taken place. You think you're still waiting for the surgery and you're informed that it's all over. You are now a Brahmajnani. This is not a new metaphor. It's as ancient as Vedanta. In fact, that is how Vedanta is with the same surgery metaphor. In our well-known and beloved Guru Stotram, the 2nd verse says as much. Ajnana timirandhasya jnana shalakaya chakshurun militan yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namaha to this Vaidya. Who is this? Doctor. What kind of doctor? Bhavaroga Vaidya, a specialist in the roga, in the disease called samsara. The one who is the specialist, who has an MD in what? Samsara roga. An MD in samsara roga, this specialist of samsara roga is who? Guru. And what does the Guru do? Guru is an expert in cataract surgery, says this verse. For who? For the one who cannot see very well. Oh, cataract, I'm seeing double. Duality, after all. I'm seeing double, I'm seeing triple, I'm seeing quadruple. I'm seeing many in the place of one. I have cataracts. And then perhaps in the old, we have to consider the Charaka Samhita, where the Ayurvedic treatise talks about many kinds of procedures, including surgical procedures, but apparently there was an ointment to melt away the cataracts. Anjana. Anjana, ointment. So what does the specialist in this cataract surgery, where the disease is one of duality? The disease of duality, because one is subscribed to the vision of division, that has to be changed. And what does the Guru do? Ajnana timirandhasya, for the one suffering from the cataract of ajnanam, atma ajnanam. Jnananjana shalakaya. With a shalaka means with an applicator. The applicator with the of the balm, the ointment called Mahavakya. With the Mahavakya ointment. Chakshuhu unmilitam yena. By whom this vision of no division was immediately communicated to me. Tasmai, unto that Guru, my surrender, my salutations. The same thing, the same kind of surgery metaphor was there long ago. So when you have to go for surgery, you have to let go. And what is happening in this retreat is a kind of a outpatient procedure. You don't have to check in, you don't, yeah, but still there is anesthesia, local anesthesia. What is local anesthesia? The jokes, of course. They are the local anesthesia. You laugh, you become a little light, you let go a little bit. You're not highly strung, I have to get this knowledge, I have to become a jnani at the end of this retreat. Those pressures are not there. You laugh. Like Pujya Swamiji used to say, I can even make people laugh without a joke. How? Then he would tell a story. And what was the story? Once he made a joke in the class, and then after everybody laughed, after 1 week, one man came and said, you know, Swamiji, he was falling down in laughter. He was rolling on the floor laughing, and he couldn't barely get the words out. You know, Swamiji, ha 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 ha, he's laughing. And he says, that joke which you told 10 days ago, I finally understood. Ha 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 ha. He laughed, the second laughter. Then Swamiji said, what is it that you understood from that joke? And then he told what he understood, and then Swamiji laughed heartily. And now we are laughing. This is the fourth laughter. We still don't know what the joke is. To this day, we do not know the joke, but we are still enjoying it. It has become a parampara of laughter. So, in this way, we have to let go. We have to let go and let the pramana operate. And even if the well-entrenched notions cannot be totally removed right now, we have to learn to suspend them and give this knowledge a chance. Give yourself a chance. More we'll see in the next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.